If I Am Assassinated, it's a book written by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Written in his death cell in the Rawalpindi district jail with paper on knees, the document was smuggled to Lahore printing press and then to England for its photo-states copy to be distributed there. If I Am Assassinated is a testimony of Bhutto's courage. Even with death staring him in the face, he had not lost his faculty for analysis. While claiming that he did his best to rebuild the Pakistan army after the 1971 Bangladesh war, he has not, however, offered any explanation as to why he was building a large army. Perhaps the answer is to be found in the frenzy with which Bhutto was trying to develop Pakistan's nuclear strength, even at the cost of people having to eat grass. Bhutto, during his good days, behaved like a man in a hurry, eager to carve a place for himself in history. On his 21st birthday, he received two gifts. One was a 5-set volume of Napoleon Bonaparte biography. The other was a pamphlet with Karl Marx's famous slogan, "Workers of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains, you have a world to win." Bhutto considered Napoleon one of his idols. How does one make sense of politician whose ideology combines Karl Marx and Napoleon Bonaparte despite their radically conflicting worldviews? Bhutto comes across as a politician whose primary ambition was to grab power, one who was driven more by lust for it than by an urge to transform society. In an interview, Bhutto said, "You don't get into politics just for fun of it. You go in to take power in your hands and keep it. Anyone who says the opposite is a liar." Bhutto was undoubtedly the most prominent mass leader in post-Jinnah Pakistan. Zia was deeply fearful of Bhutto. According to Mubashir Hussain, a worker once informed him of how, when a few drops of tea fell on Bhutto's shoes, Zia took out his handkerchief and cleaned them. Zia gradually came to enjoy the upper hand. Bhutto wrote that I am confined in a death cell and have no access to the material needed for effectively refuting the false and allegation in these white papers. But nevertheless, with my all limitations, I have attempted a reply to the same in the following paragraphs to keep the record straight. Bhutto alive would be a very dangerous man, possibly free one day and probably in power the next day. Bhutto's record in Balochistan is not much better than the army. Bhutto says, "I would not have suffered the fate I am suffering had it not been for internal betrayal." What he means is that those who had decided to deny Pakistan the nuclear reprocessing plant overthrow him because he would not give it up. Second, that having overthrown him, they had to imprison him because otherwise the people would put him in power. Third, that having overthrown him, they want to hang him or at otherwise he could be back in power one day. Number four, that external forces found it possible to do all this only because they found accomplices within Pakistan. Fifth, that the internal accomplices betrayed him because they were bribed to do so, PNA receiving money. It has been seen that the deadlock in the PPP-PNA negotiation was given as the reason for the coup. In actual fact, there was no deadlock. Agreement had been reached. The minor points raised by PNA were to be resolved the next day, the day of the coup, 5th July 1977. In a backward province like Balochistan, which has gone through repeated political upheavals, the efficiency, integrity and reliability of the civil servants is generally low. There are complaints of corruption. Development is bogged down. It was typical of Mr. Bhutto's style of administration that he looked the election as some kind of war against the opposition. To quote, "In short, it shall be a detailed battle plan of action, leaving nothing to chance. We have to mount campaign against the enemy, starting from our point of strength and attacking the weak points of our opponent." This warlike terminology occurs and reoccurs in the speeches made and operation plans prepared by Mr. Bhutto and his confidants. In my speech in the National Assembly on 7 January 1977, while announcing the general election, I said, I know the politicians like to avoid elections as much as generals like to avoid wars. But the point is that political battles have to be fought. Political elections have to be fought according to a time schedule. For wars, there is no time schedule. The election campaign of 1970 was organized exactly on the same principles. The control room was the guest room at Al Murtaza. The same plans, charts, the same cells and assessments were made. In 1970 also, I left nothing to chance. I visited every nook and cranny of the country. I went to the jhuggis of sweepers. I went to the huts of Kachi Abadis. I left my footprints everywhere. My voice reached every home. I went 3 times to one village alone. Throughout his tenure in the office, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto seemed to have been deeply conscious of the sense of history. He claimed not only to be the student of history but also a maker of history. There are 4 major power blocks in Washington. They are beginning with the most important: press, the bureaucracy, the Congress, the intelligence community. If Washington has 4 major power blocks, Islamabad also has 4 major power blocks: the military, the bureaucracy, big businesses, the politicians. How did Ayub Khan and Yahya Khan use the intelligence? Yahya Khan used to hilt the intelligence agency for political purposes, to divide the politicians and to influence the election of 1970. I should know because at that time I was at the receiving end. Ayub Khan also used the intelligence agencies for political purposes. To the hilt, he tried to break DAC through the civil and military intelligence. He tried to prevent my party from getting off the ground through the intelligence agencies. He tried to sabotage our foundation meetings on 30th November and 1st December 1967. And it was through the intelligence agencies that he tried to stop my movement against his regime. I would say again that if I were asked what have been the most important achievement of Pakistan People's Party, I would say that in my opinion, it has been the massive transformation in the thinking of people, a qualitative change in their outlook. As a young boy, I had seen the people there crawl humbly and remain on bended knees till their feudal master would signal with this little finger for them get up, and today they would sit with the prime minister of their country and with their former feudal chief whom they still regard as their spiritual leader and talk to them as equals. It is this phenomena that some people fail to realize. One has to see it oneself to appreciate this kind of transformation that has occurred. There were 3 political forces: the Awami League, PPP and the army. The Awami League and the PPP had every right to be in politics. The army was in the middle of the political field and a trespasser. For over 3 decades, civilian leaders like Quaid-e-Azam and Gandhi led the masses of the subcontinent in an intensive struggle for independence and freedom. Without political consciousness, without political awakening, agitation against all the salt tax, the Khilafat movement, quit India and direct action would never been happened. Nowadays, we are told even so often that Pakistan was created in the name of Islam. This is true, but who created Pakistan? The Muslim masses galvanized under the civilian leadership of the Quaid-e-Azam and not under the generals. Civilization means civilian supremacy. Military and coup are a disaster. Adolf Hitler did not seize power through a coup. He won a rigged election, just as Yahya when hesitated to transfer power to the elected leaders. Chancellor Hindenburg hesitated to accept the election results in Germany. He transferred power to Adolf Hitler and the National Socialist Party only after Baron von Papen assured the ailing chancellor that he would handle Hitler. Mustafa Kemal Pasha came to the power in Turkey through revolution and by virtue of glorious victories against the Greeks supported by France and Britain. In Iran, Raza Shah led a movement to preserve the threatened unity of the Iranian nation. Strictly speaking, the only military coup that brought glory to its people was that of Napoleon Bonaparte. But Napoleon was a giant. There was no man more complete than him. In 1951, the government of Liaquat Ali Khan suppressed the attempted coup of Major General Muhammad Akbar Khan, the Chief of General Staff of the Pakistan Army. Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan condemned the attempted military takeover in the strongest of terms. He called the conspirators the enemies of Pakistan and the enemies of democracy. He warned the generals to keep away from politics for the welfare of Pakistan and its unity. He described the coup leaders as selfish individuals. Toward the end of 1972 and the beginning of 1973, barely a year after a traumatic civil war had ended with the separation of East Pakistan, another coup was being organized. General Tikka Khan, the chief of the army staff, showed me a chart of the relationship and remarked that the attempted coup was from the family corps. Some senior officers and a number of junior officers related and friendly to a politician who was formerly in the armed forces were the instigators. The comedy is this would-be coup is that the conspirator wasted half the time in trying to find the justification for their coup. It is reported that PNA movement to topple my government was the best finance campaign in the history of the subcontinent. The figure of rupees 25 crore was mentioned. The events of the last 20 years have made me arrive at the unambiguous conclusion that at present the greatest threat to the unity and the progress of the third world is from coup. PNA was not supported by foreign elements out of love. An understanding was reached. The understanding was that PNA would be helped and supported financially and politically to overthrow my government by inspired agitation. Hostile propaganda is emitting out against me at this critical juncture. Since 18th March 1978, I have spent 22 to 23 hours out of the 24 in a congested and a suffocating death cell. Light is poor, my eyesight has worsened, my health has been shattered. I have been in a solitary confinement for almost a year, but my morale is high because I am not made of the wood which burns easily. Through sheer will in conditions that are adverse in the esteem, I have written this rejoinder. Let all the white papers come. I don't have to defend myself at the bar of public opinion. My services to the cause of our people are a mirror in front of them. It is said that some good comes out of the worst of evil. I was not permitted to put forward my defense. Orally, I was informed in court Lakpat jail that my request to address the court after the prosecution was rejected. I was not a practicing lawyer. From 9 January 1978, I was not being defended by lawyers. I had been insulted and humiliated by the court during the open trial for 3 months. Nations rise and fall as the sun rises and sets through culture and civilization. Some nations make themselves great through coup and conspiracies. Other nations turn into the debris of history. After the death of Aurangzeb in 1707, the great empire founded by Babur began to disintegrate. Foreign invaders marched in to grab the booty of an empire as rich as that of any Caesars. ना वो बदले ना दिल बदला ना दिल की आरजू बदली मैं कैसे एतबार इनकलाब आसमां कर लूं Pakistan has been turned into an animal farm and its wretched and God forsaken people into dirty animals. But a tonic comes when even dirty animals know where they stand. On 6 February 1979, the Supreme Court issued a guilty verdict, a decision reached by a bare 4-3 majority. Bhutto was hanged at Central Jail Rawalpindi on 4th April 1979.